Welcome to this I Got an Offer video where you will discover an excerpt of our live case interviews. This excerpt corresponds to the first 10 minutes of one of our 40-minute live case interview videos. In these videos, we have someone playing the role of the interviewer and another person the role of the interviewee. We also stop the video from time to time to give you some special tips on how best to approach case interview questions. This is the part we call learning mode. To make the most of these videos, you should take an active role and answer the interview questions yourself before listening to our answer. Do it as if you were actually talking to the interviewer, and then compare your answer to the one we give in the video. This will enable you to simulate a real case interview environment. Okay, let's now go ahead and watch this live case interview video.
Our client is a grocery retailer called Sunshine in France in the year 2000. Sunshine currently has 5 billion euros in revenue. It is considering starting an online grocery service where customers would do their grocery shopping on the internet and would get it delivered directly at home. The CEO has hired you to help her decide if she should get into the online business. What are the different areas you would look at to help her make that decision?
Let me make sure I understand the situation and the case objectives correctly. Our client is called Sunshine. It's a grocery retailer in France with 5 billion euros in revenues. We are in the year 2000, at the beginning of the internet, so to speak, so this case does not take place today. The CEO is considering launching an online grocery delivery service and has asked for our help to decide if she should go ahead or not. Did I get the situation correctly?
Yes, that's right. You got the situation correctly.
Okay, before diving into the case, I wanted to ask one clarification question if that's okay. Does the CEO have a specific objective in mind? What does she hope to achieve by entering the online space? Does she see the online delivery service as a way to increase revenues, or profits, or market share, or any other financial metric?
That's a good question. The CEO does not have a specific objective in mind, but she wants to understand what would be the economics of going online for Sunshine. More broadly, she's interested in whether Sunshine should be participating in that industry or not.
Okay, that makes sense. It sounds like the CEO is particularly interested in understanding the economics of going online, so that's something we might want to look at as part of our framework. Do you mind if I take a minute to gather my thoughts on how best to approach this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so let's go into the learning mode for a second here. There are 3 things I would like to bring to your attention. First, notice here how I've played by the main elements of the situation. Taking the time to do this is extremely important. If you miss important details at the very beginning of the case, that can be fine. Your interviewer can repeat these details to you and she will give you the benefit of the doubt. But if your interviewer realizes that you have not grasped an important part of the case 10 minutes after you started, she probably won't help you and you will fail the case. For instance, here, it is critical to understand that the case takes place in the year 2000 and that there weren't many online grocery retailers at the time. Second, notice here how I've tried to quantify the objective of the case by asking if the CEO wants to grow profits, revenues, or another metric. Whenever you can, you should always try to quantify the objective of the case. This is something partners do all the time in consulting, because it gives you a very clear objective of what you need to do. In this example, even though I did not obtain a quantification metric from the interviewer, I learned more about what's on the CEO's mind. She wants to understand the economics of going online. So even if you did not get a quantification metric, this question will always be helpful. Finally, one thing I have noticed doing case interviews is that you can actually use clarification questions at the beginning of the case to find out part of the framework your interviewer has in mind. The right way to do this is to ask questions about what is important for the CEO or the client. This is a little subtle, so let me clarify this. You should not ask the interviewer if she thinks something is important to look into, as she won't answer the question. Instead, you should confirm with her that X or Y is important for the client. For instance, in this case, I said, it sounds like the CEO is particularly interested in understanding the economics of going online, so that's something we might want to look at. And the interviewer did not react, which basically means I was right. Trying to understand what's important for the client is very important in consulting, and if you do this in a case interview, it will reflect positively on you. Okay, let's now go back to the interview mode. But before listening to the answer, you should hit pause on the video and try to build a framework by yourself and to present it to the interviewer out loud. Remember that you can take about 1 minute to gather your thoughts before communicating your framework to the interviewer. So there are three areas I would like to explore to determine if Sunshine should enter the online market. First, I'd like to understand what customer demand for the service would be. Second, I'd like to look into what would be required in terms of operations to launch this service. And third, I'd like to study the economics of launching this business. Let me now look into these three different areas in more detail. First, customer demand. Here, what I'm trying to understand is how big the market for this idea is. How many customers would be interested in this service? How much would they be willing to pay? Would we be able to price the food at the same level as in stores? Would delivery have to be free? Could we charge for it? What are customers' needs or expectations? Would we need to offer the same number of products as in the stores? These kind of questions. Second, operational design. Here, what I'm trying to understand is how difficult it would be to bring this idea to life. For instance, is all the technology required to build a functional website available? Could we do it internally, or would we have to outsource this? Also, would we need to build a new warehouse to store all the products, or could we do it using the existing warehouses? Would we need to buy vehicles and hire drivers, or could we outsource the delivery, for instance? Could we optimize the delivery? These are the questions that I would be interested in for the operational design. Third and finally, the economics. Here, what I'm trying to understand is whether going online would actually make sense from an economic standpoint. So for instance, what is the current financial health of Sunshine? Is it in a position to make investments? What is the cost of the different investments that need to be made? What is the expected revenue and the return on investment? Also, if Sunshine decides not to go online but competitors do, how much would it cost in terms of revenues lost to the competition? So in summary, I would be looking at three areas. Customer demand to understand how attractive the market is, operational design to understand what it would take to build this business, and economics to understand if we could actually make money by building this business. Finally, in terms of prioritization, I would start looking at customer demand first to make sure there's enough demand for the product on the market. If we determine there's enough demand, it would make sense to look into how to implement the idea and then to see if it's financially sustainable.
Okay, I think your framework makes sense. Given the CEO wants to understand the economics of the online business, why wouldn't you start by looking at this rather than focusing on customer demand first?
That's a good question. I understand that the CEO's objective is to understand the economics of the business. However, the economics will vary a lot depending on how much customer demand there is and what operational design we decide to implement. As a consequence, I think that looking at these two areas first is a prerequisite to getting a robust view on the economics of the business. Okay, this is it for this excerpt of our live case interview video. I hope you found it interesting. The remaining 30 minutes of the video cover the key parts of a McKinsey case interview, including quantitative questions, creativity questions, and a recommendation. To get more insight into case interviews, check out our case interview training program, where you can find our I Got an Offer method video, complete live case interview videos with special tips, practice questions and practice case interviews, as well as dedicated support from our team.